Peel back the blunder. Judgment Day, Jocelyn on the stage, breaking it down, the law in the head. Truth I'm better, on this way. All right, now it's Judgment Day.
What's up, everybody? Some of you may know who I am already from a previous podcast that we host here in Black Office, but my name is Joss. And if you don't already know, I am studying to be a lawyer. So here's my own show. I hope you guys enjoy everything and, give me some ideas as far as what cases to talk about. If there's any lawyers out there, if you can drop any advice that you have for me on my journey to becoming a lawyer, that would be great as well. So, again, this is just for me to learn a little bit more about some case study, learn some more things on the way to going to law school. So, I hope to examine cases as well as teach you guys some things that you may not know about different laws, statutes. So, here to help and, just talk about different cases. So, today we're going to go over the case of Marissa Alexander. And within her case, it has to do with domestic violence dispute. So if anybody's been in a domestically violent situation, you know how critical things can get. So also this really touches on the basis of self-defense, what that looks like for the laws of your state. And in this case, she happened to be in Florida, where laws can be a little bit different. So on August 1st in Jacksonville, Florida, Marissa Alexander was involved in a confrontation with her estranged husband, Rico Gray, in which Rico, he had many domestic violence situations, not even just with Miss Alexander, but she did have, some disputes with her, obviously. And this was all documented. And what happened was she was arrested for firing a warning shot towards him. And also, two children were in the vicinity as well. It did not harm anybody, nobody was injured. She shot a warning shot. So, if you could roll the video for me, and it'll be about her talking a little bit about her case.
On our cell phone.
He managed to get the door open, and that's when he strangled me. He put his hands around my neck.
Alexander got away from her husband and then made a fateful decision. She could have run out the front door and escaped. Instead, she ran into the garage, but says she did not have her car keys and the garage door was stuck. So instead, she grabbed her gun she kept in this garage.
And what did you think you were going to do with it?
I thought that I was going to have to protect myself.
Were you thinking you might have to shoot him?
Yeah, I did. If it came to that, he saw my weapon at my side, and when he saw it, he was even more upset, and that's when he threatened to kill me.
But how is he going to kill you if you're the one with the gun?
I agree. I thought it was crazy too.
But why didn't you run out the door at that point?
There was no other way to get out the door. He was right there threatening to kill me.
What if you would have gone around him to go out the door? And your life would have been easier today if you did that.
Yeah, but the law states I don't have to.
The law she's talking about is the controversial stand your ground law. Instead of running, she did what she thought was allowed by law. She believed she stood her ground and fired the gun into the wall. Nobody was hurt, but it was enough to scare her husband Rico Gray, and he left the house with his two young children from a previous relationship.
Okay, so in that video, that was Marissa Alexander. She was telling a little bit of what happened with her story. So, like she said, she felt like she had a case of stand your ground. And here is what Florida says about stand your ground statute. This law allows a person to use deadly force without a duty to retreat if they reasonably believe it's necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. So some keywords here, reasonable belief and imminent threat. Um, in this, she felt like she was threatened because, he obviously said, "I'm going to kill you." Now, within this law, she felt like she was covered by that, but ultimately, they did not believe that in the state of Florida that she was covered by this law, because if you were standing your ground, you should have already possibly had the gun with you, but she went to go retrieve it from the garage. A little bit more background on what happened that day. So Marissa, she recounts that she was not living at the home with her husband, obviously due to the abuse that she has taken by him for the past year and a half. They had been married. She newly had a baby. She was about a week old, fresh out of labor, and she was staying with her mother at the time, because she was gradually, leaving the home, trying to leave him, separate. So at this time, she came back to the home. Rico, he was not there. She came there to gather some things, and he showed up there. So upon him showing up there, you know, they're really not supposed to be around each other. She's had previous restraining orders on him, but she started showing him pictures of the baby because they have a newborn baby together now at this point. So she's showing him the baby, and she recalls going into the bathroom, leaves him with the phone. So he starts going through her phone, and at that point, that's when he becomes upset and starts getting violent with her. So he goes into the bathroom, confronts her about some text messages that are in her phone. Miss Alexander, she was previously married and shares 2 children with her ex-husband. So while she, was in labor, her children were with her ex-husband. They were doing their thing. And at this time, Miss Alexander, she sent a picture to the ex-husband because they have a co-parenting relationship, and she wanted to show her children. So ultimately was sending the picture to the ex-husband so he could show the children their new sibling. So apparently this sparked up a rage within her current husband, who she's separating from. And at this point, he starts, alleging that the baby's not his. Is it your ex-husband? Why are you sending pictures of the baby to your ex-husband? So, start getting into it over that. Miss Alexander, she's trying to get out of the bathroom because he's blocking the doorway, from what she recalls. And at some point, she gets past him, runs to the garage. She states that she's not able to get out of the garage because the garage door is broken. So since the garage door is broken, she grabbed her gun out of her glove compartment, a gun that she is permitted to carry, goes back in the house, and the estranged husband, he sees this gun and tells her, "I'm going to kill you. Well, bitch, I'm going to kill you." So at this point, she felt fearful for her life. And that's when she shot the warning shot in the air. It did not hit him. It did not hit the children that were there with him, which were not shared by them. These are Rico's children from previous relationship or relationships. So needless to say, nobody was injured. Neither was Miss Alexander. This bullet hit the wall, ricocheted onto the ceiling. No injuries. At this point, Mr. Rico, he recalls that, he grabbed his children, ran out of the house, and from there, he called 911. So Miss Alexander did not call 911, but Rico did. Miss Alexander, she was arrested, obviously, for the incident. She was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. So that would be one count for each person that is present. So 2 children and Mr. Rico. So in Florida, that would be another law that they have, a 10-20 to life law, in which under this law, you get 10 years for possessing a gun during a felony, 20 years for firing the gun, and 25 plus to life if someone is injured. So because she fired the gun, she was looking at a mandatory 20-year minimum sentence. No discretion, no consideration of the context. That's just what you're facing right away. No parole, nothing like that. So, at trial, she claimed self-defense and she sought protection under the Stand Your Ground law. However, the judge ruled that she did not qualify for immunity under that law due to the fact that Marissa had removed herself from danger when she went into the garage. So they state that that automatically disqualified her because you went from one area, you left, you didn't leave the home completely, like you could have went out the back door or something. That was their argument, and she did not do that. But she ultimately removed herself from the imminent danger to the garage, but came back with the gun. So her coming back was her putting herself back into the dangerous situation. So during this trial, they're going back and forth with the evidence, whatnot. And when it was time for the jury to come to their decision, they deliberated in just 12 minutes. She was found guilty on all counts. So after that, came her sentencing. And like I said, she was sentenced and was facing 20 years. So do y'all think that's fair? 20 years and she's defending herself? What do y'all think? Do you think it's
Her
self-defense
husband,
at all?
but not from the law. She was arrested. Her stand your ground defense
No one say,
rejected
hey, everybody.
and found
If you're
guilty by
joining
a
the
jury.
chat.
Marissa Alexander's husband, Rico
And feel free
Gray,
to ask
agreed to
any,
do an on-camera interview with
background
us to
questions
counter his wife's
regarding
allegations.
the case.
But a few hours later, he
Because
made the decision not to
on
do
this
the
show,
interview, claiming
you're the
that going
jury.
on camera would put his life.
So also,
saying he
another
would do
question
an
for
interview if
y'all.
he got paid. which
Should
CNN
firing a warning shot ever be considered self-defense? You feel like somebody can defend themselves by firing a warning shot? Yes, no, or it depends. So, I mean, that could have somebody back off, but at the same time, you could just be giving yourself another charge. Kind of like how she did in this case. She gave herself 3 charges. So, even though no one was harmed, she was required the 20-year mandatory minimum sentence, like I said. So, of course, she did not agree with that because she's standing on her word. He abused me, and this is self-defense. She did as well have testimony from her mother, her daughter, even a couple sister-in-laws that were testifying against Mr. Rico, stating that he has a history of being violent in the community. Shit's wild. Florida and California got fucked up laws. California is hella wild with some laws, but Florida is too. So yeah, I agree with that. And there's a lot of gray areas, so it's really like you got to get in where you fit in with them laws. You got to really prove your case. But also with this case, it was not really up to Miss Alexander to prove that she was defending herself. It was up to the prosecution to prove, she didn't defend herself in this way. So they wanted to give her this 20. They needed to prove it. So since you have that bit of information, Marissa, she did put in an appeal because, like I said, she's standing on her business. She's wanting to obviously not being sentenced to 20 years because who wants to do 20 years? She got 3 kids,
From
a
the
new
Office of
baby
State Attorney
that
Angela
she didn't
Corey
even get
and a defense
to
attorney for his wife, Rico Gray
hardly see.
acknowledged hitting his wife in the
The baby was
past
a week old when
and
the
said this
incident
about the shooting
happened.
incident, quote,
Now she's going to
"If my
jail
kids
facing
weren't there,
20.
I knew I probably
You
would
don't
have
think
tried
it's
to take the gun from her.
self-defense? Why don't you
I
think it's
probably would have
self-defense?
put my hand on her."
Let
Marissa
me know.
Alexander's attorney then asked the husband what he meant about putting his hand on her. And Rico Gray responded, "Probably hit her. I got 5 baby mamas, and I put my hands in every
The
last one of
deposition
them
was
except for
crazy.
one."
I believe when he threatened to kill me, that's what he was going to do. That's exactly what he intended
The deposition he gave
And had
was
I not
crazy. For you to say that you put your
discharged my
hands
weapon
on
at that point,
5
I
baby
would not be
mamas
here.
is
But
crazy.
later, at a court hearing to determine whether Marissa Alexander should get immunity based on the stand your ground law, Rico Gray changed his story, saying he lied repeatedly in the deposition to protect his wife, claiming he did not threaten to kill her, and testifying, quote, "I begged and pleaded for my life when she had the gun." The jury deliberated for 12 minutes before convicting her. The Jacksonville NAACP wrote a letter to the trial judge, saying Marissa Alexander may not have received justice because of her gender, race, or economic status. Some African-American news websites are saying much the same thing.
Y'all feel like she was
That if Marissa had
discriminated
been white,
against
her
in
stand your
any
ground
sort of
defense
way?
would have been accepted, and she wouldn't be
And
facing 20 years in
also,
prison.
I don't like the
But
fact that
Alexander will not
he
say
had
if
the
she agrees
opportunity
with
to
that
change his
possibility.
deposition,
I'm going to be honest with you, I'm
saying
uncomfortable
that
answering that.
For now, Marissa
he lied
Alexander's
in it.
main hope is
Because
that
when
an
you take a
appellate court
deposition,
agrees to hear her case.
you putting your hand up
She
swearing
had a
that this is
baby
the
girl
truth, the
with
whole
Rico
truth, and
Gray
nothing but
3
the
years
truth,
ago,
just like you would
but she only sees her
when
child
you're
in
in court.
photographs. Rico Gray has custody.
You are
He's
in front of
considered the victim.
impartial witnesses taking a statement from you. So I feel like there should be some type of penalty to him for lying, but at the same time, there is documented proof that you put your hands on at least this woman. You had a restraining order, all type of stuff.
Is that an appellate court agreed
It's
to hear
very
her
wild,
case.
but I'm still waiting to see
She had a
why,
baby girl with Rico
you thought
Gray
that it
3 years
wasn't
ago, but she
self-defense.
only sees her
But I'm
child in
interested to know.
photographs. Rico Gray has
But I
custody.
can see it both ways,
He's
honestly,
considered the victim.
in
His wife,
my
the
opinion.
criminal.
I have
This
no
is my
legal
life I'm
advice to
fighting
give.
for.
This is just
This is my
straight
life.
opinions. Again, y'all the
And
jury.
My life, and it's not entertainment. It is my
So,
life.
getting to her
The
appeal,
20-year sentence is a
in
mandatory 20 years,
2013,
meaning no chance
Marissa,
of parole.
her
Gary
conviction was
Tuckman,
overturned
CNN.
on the appeal. So she went to the appellate court because the jury was actually given incorrect instructions regarding the self-defense. So they were specifically the instructions improperly shifted the burden onto Marissa to prove that she acted in self-defense. Remember, I said before, it is up to the prosecution to prove that she was not in self-defense because she's telling you, this is exactly what I was doing. So since you're prosecuting me, you need to tell me why this was not what I'm telling you it was. So again, legally, the burden is on the state to disprove it without a reasonable doubt. If you can't come with the hard facts, then you gotta let it fly. Lock her back up. But she got kids. Like, do you really feel like the 20 years was reasonable when nobody got hurt? I don't know. I feel like 20 years is a little excessive just for shooting something that didn't hit nobody, especially when she's been abused. But also had testimony from a psychiatrist that she was a battered woman, that she had battered woman syndrome, which is a form of PTSD from being abused, obviously. So I feel like that helped her case because, she could have snapped from the year and a half of abuse, like, okay, you didn't have me effed up this many times. So this time you coming at me crazy, got me in a bathroom locked up. You got your kids in here, so you can beat me with your kids in here, but I can't shoot in the air. Where's the same, energy for him? Because in his case, he's endangering children at the same time by being physically abusive, by bringing violence into this home. So yeah, I feel like there's a couple double standards in this point.
Florida.
But since she was going to go appeal this, and her appeal did get accepted for her to start this trial, she actually faced up to 60 years in prison at this point. And then if you see on the screen, this is from the case. You'll see everything. This is actually the appeal that she put in, where they're explaining, you can't appeal on the self-defense or the stand your ground law, but you can appeal on the fact that the jury was not given the correct instructions. Hey, baby.
Hi.
Okay.
I love you.
I love you too. Go with daddy.
Hi, Daddy.
So since, she's retrying the case, bringing up everything, what went on all over again, she actually accepted a plea deal, which was the smartest thing for her to do at this point. You facing 60 years. So I feel like the plea deal and all this was pretty good. So the plea deal that she accepted was credit for time served. So at this point, she had already been in prison for 3 years. So she only had to do just a little bit longer in jail, in addition to being on house arrest and receiving probation. So basically, she walked free after those 3 years, just had to, wear the monitor. She still got on her record, but hey, she gets to be out with her kids. She's not doing 20 years. She's not doing 60 years. So I feel like that's a pretty good deal. Where's the evidence that he abused her? So like I said, there was multiple documented incidents of him being abusive, as in she called the police. They actually had a restraining order at a point in time. And from me just reading up on this case, watching videos and interviews by her, from what she explained was, they had met in 2009. Everything took off kind of quick with them. Everything was very, they were very attracted to each other. And so, at this point, they wanted to get married. They wanted to start a family together. Like I said, she already got 2 kids with somebody else. He already has kids with somebody else. But, they wanted to do their thing. So, there were red flags there about him, she said, but she didn't pay it any mind because, she's, oh, he loves me type thing. Oh, he want to be in my skin. He want to know where I'm going. He want to go with me all the time. So she's thinking it's cute, but it's not really cute. That's his way of trying to check up on her, being controlling, all that. So then it starts getting abusive. So they had them a break after she had put a restraining order on him. They went their separate ways. After some time, he started putting that charm on her again. And that's when they get back together. He's being cool. And then she gets pregnant. So at this point, she's pregnant. They get married from there. He's doing all the right things, being there for her, family man, hey, not putting his hands on her. He being an upstanding man at this point. But after that, that's when he started being abusive again. She had her baby at 8 months. The baby had to be in the ICU. So she's went through some things. Not even just like with this man, but through the pregnancy. When the baby was in the ICU, he didn't come see the baby. So like I said, that's why when he showed up at the house, she's showing him the pictures like, this your baby, blah blah blah. And then it was a whole problem from there. I have heard that Florida is a racist state. I can't speak personally. I've been to Florida, but I never personally had any problems, but I have definitely heard it's wild there. They racist. They kind of say that, I feel like, about all red states, but I think it's just really based on, let's see, Florida's a racist state because if you look back on the story about the neighbor killing her neighbor because she wanted to talk about why she was messing with her kids and she was out of jail for a whole year before they locked her up. Yeah, people do. They slip through the cracks. They do, unfortunately, and it's messed up, and that's why if something like that happened to you personally, like, I feel like you really got to stand on business about what's going on with you, especially if it's kids involved. But we know the justice system is clearly not perfect at all. Like, there's so many stories, there's so many things that, so many cases that has to do with race. And that's why another part of this, why that they were involved saying that she was being racially profiled as well in this because she was a black woman. But the prosecutors, they tried to say, but she shot at a black man and black children. So we're not being racist about this, but we all know if it was, it might be a different thing. It might be self-defense because you've heard of other cases like when that woman unalived her baby and had her in the trunk and was out partying, and Casey Anthony, that's her name. And I believe that happened in Florida too. But I believe there's a lot of different cases like that where people, they just literally get away with whatever. But they do hold black people to a higher standard of, nah, we really trying to put you in there. But I did see another interview with Miss Alexander where she, talked about her life after she came out. If you need to mention race, you are racist. I don't think so. It's just calling a spade for real. Like, you can literally bring facts up. Like, racism really is real, and it happens all the time. You don't got to be racist to just because you brought race up into something. Like, this really happens in the justice system plenty of times. Like, get on TikTok, get on Lawyer Talk. You're going to see a whole bunch of lawyers talking about how race is involved. So, but that's your opinion. I respect it. But racism is definitely a real thing. It's plenty of cases, too many cases out here. No, she's not back with him. While she was in prison, the dad, Rico, he had custody of the little baby. But she did say she is not with him. There's multiple interviews where she has done, just talking about her life outside of prison and kind of what she had to deal with while she was in prison. This woman, she has a master's degree. She was at a job where she said she loved it. I can't remember what job she was exactly doing, but she said she loved her job, had a master's degree, so she's educated, out here being a productive citizen. And this just unfortunately happened to her. Him, when they tried to interview him, he just looking for money. He wouldn't respond to anybody's interview, but then he started asking them, I'll give you an interview if you pay me. They weren't doing that. A bunch of lawyers on TikTok, oh, that makes sense. Since some fucking Jews brought TikTok and now Israel is using it to teach you how you should hate each other. Well, I don't give a damn who bought TikTok, honestly, but the content's on there. So I can't say that the Jews are making these lawyers say things about real cases that they're dealing with every day. I don't get into all that. You just get into the facts. But again, I respect your opinion if that's how you feel. It was a problem when the Chinese owned it or the Taiwanese, wherever TikTok is originated, but now if the Jews bought it, it's a problem. They're just trying to keep it in America. That's their business. But like I said, check out, you can call a lawyer if you want to, if you don't want to get on TikTok. I'm sure you can find lawyers on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. It's a bunch of them. So just do your research. Like I said, you can actually look up multiple cases. There's websites where you can literally go through cases and just go down and read them. But if you don't think racism is real, I mean, you're not going to see what other people see. Bringing in intergenerational harmful legend teachings, money for viewpoints, obvious scam. If that's how you feel, I mean, I'm not trying to harm nobody in the making of any of these podcasts. I'm just bringing to light cases that are going on, the facts that are brought up. My opinions are my opinions, and so are yours. Like I said, you the jury. If you want to feel how you want to feel about these cases, then go ahead. But I'm just letting you know what a real woman has dealt with. You know, at this point, she just happened to be labeled as the criminal at this point instead of the victim. Why do women always go back to their abuser? I think it's different for each woman, honestly. If you've never been in a domestic violence situation, then I don't think you'll really understand. But, you know, some people, they go back because when the good is good, cool. But when it's bad, then it's like you want to get out. But at that point, if you try to leave, you might be unalived, you might be injured further. Like sometimes it's you trying to strategically plan leaving. Like I think it's a multiple different things for women, but you would literally have to sit there and ask a woman who has been in that situation why. You know, I definitely will say people, you know, try to crucify Cassie in the Diddy situation for why she didn't leave. You know, that man, he had certain influence, so literally there was people's cars being blown up. You've seen videos of her being stomped in a hallway. People are afraid for their life to get out, but at the same time, it's like, if I stay, I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. I might die while staying, might die while going. So what's the lesser of two evils until I can actually go? So I feel like that's the best I can answer it for you. It just really depends on the woman. So now that, you know, she's out, oh, a lot of propaganda lawyers on entertainment platforms, many current cases are highly biased. Very true. Many high profile cases can be biased. Any case can really be biased, just depending on how much it is put out there in the media. You know, like this case was really put out in the media because people were upset that she was not able to use the stand your ground because they felt like it was self-defense. She felt like it was self-defense. She was out there really trying to, you know, let them know I snapped in this moment. Like, you telling me you gonna kill me, I'm walking in the house with my gun because you just put your hands on me. So I can't get out the garage. I'm coming back in this house. I need to protect myself. You know, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't. But she felt like she was defending herself. Diddy being charged of a RICO, thoughts? So, of course, since I'm studying to be a lawyer, like I said, I have to go based on the facts that are presented. Prosecution, their facts was real weak. If you wanted to hit him on the RICO, you was supposed to come harder than that. If you did not have the evidence for the RICO and you needed to get more, you should have waited and got the evidence that you needed. It was real weak. So, I mean, it is what it is. Didn't get him on the RICO. You know, my personal opinion, I'm not going to say that he didn't do it because I feel like he did. But he just kind of covered his tracks in a way where he didn't get hit with the RICO. That he didn't get hit with the other things because it was just kind of like, I don't know. He hit it real good, but prosecution was weak. They should have came harder. But maybe next time, gotta be quicker than that. So I feel like he probably could have got a little bit more time for what he did get charged with. But at the same time, the judge was a very fair judge. And at the same time, you know, in my opinion, I don't feel like you need to be locked away. I feel like we should find ways to rehabilitate people because that's important. Like if you're going to be putting people back into society, we need to find ways to, you know, make sure they're going to be a productive citizen. Now, we're going to see how it is when he get out. If he going back to freak offs and all that other nasty shit, or if, you know, he'll come out, just be a real cool family man like he been saying he is. But they was weak on the prosecution. So that's their bad. They lost. They got to take that L. Seems like a textbook case of domestic violence equals self-defense if she was truly in grave danger at the time and circumstances. I mean, domestic violence, I feel like come in many different forms and circumstances, like textbooks, standards. I don't know. Like it becomes a gray area because there's just so many different things that go on. Like there's mental abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's physical abuse. There's just so many different things, and I can't say that she didn't experience all of those things. You know, we don't live with her every day, but there was documented proof. You can go look these things up, like did this man really get charged with these things, because as we know, court records are public records and you're gonna find it. So I believe she was in danger. Now the fact of her, you know, if the garage door really didn't open, then it didn't open. But the prosecution says that they did not find, she didn't present any evidence actually that the garage door didn't work. Because like I said, she hadn't been living there for 2 months. She'd been living with her mom and she just came there to come get some stuff out that house. So on that part, I'm kind of like, well, you got into the garage and parked your car in the garage, so why don't it work all of a sudden when, you know? So it's just things to think about, because it's like, you got in there, how was you going to leave? Like, it had to have worked. Why did it break? What happened from the time that you was in the house getting these things parked and it don't work? But that wasn't for her to prove. Like I said, that was for the prosecution to prove that the garage didn't work, to prove that she really wasn't defending herself, which is why she was able to, you know, I guess she said she was dependent on faith because it was bigger than her at that point. So she really was pulling on the faith of God to find a way out of this. And, you know, by this appeal, because they didn't instruct the jury correctly, that was her avenue. She took a plea deal because she knew that was the best thing for her at that point. And hey, she got out. So I feel like if you found a way, you found a way. Only severe violence capability to cause harm could reasonably justify use of firearm in defense, the emotional harm, etc. I believe I went over what they said. So again, the Florida Stand Your Ground rule says this law allows a person to use deadly force without a duty to retreat if they reasonably believe it is necessary to prevent imminent death or great bodily harm. And again, the psychiatrist that stood on the stand for her said that she was suffering from battered woman syndrome. So at this point, with that, plus her being told that she was going to get killed, that's what clicked in her mind of I'm about to die. You know, he about to do something to me. Even though I have this gun, he about to do something to me, so I'm going to do something to him before he even tried to come to me. Did she try to leave? So what she stated her attempt to leave was when she went into the garage. She left from out the master bedroom bathroom after he trapped her in there, you know, being aggressive, violent, said that he choked her, you know, hit her head, hit her leg when he was closing her in the door. And she ran to the garage trying to leave. But then the garage door was broken. So she grabbed her gun and she went in the house. So that's why, you know, prosecution was saying she can't use that law because you left from the violent situation, but you re-entered it when you went back in the house. So she tried to leave, but not really, because they brought up the fact that you could have went out the front door, you could have went out the back door. But she also did state that she wasn't sure if he had left the house at that time, since, you know, everything had went on, but he left the house when she fired the warning shot, took his kids out the house and left. So, you know, but again, she only had to do 3 years, a little house arrest, a little probation, and now she out here serving the community. She has like a nonprofit, a foundation that she does for women that are in abusive relationships. She wants to open up a shelter so that, you know, women can come there, get counseling, get help, whatever they need if they're in those type of situations. So she's out here, you know, living in her truth of what she felt she was wronged for. So she's trying to help other women that were in her situation. But do y'all think that mandatory minimum should, you know, be a thing? Because I mean, like I said, Florida got that law of 10-20 in life. 10 years just for possessing the gun. 20 years for discharging the gun.
Well, your daughter
And then
was
if anybody
only
were to get
9
injured
days
or
old.
died, 25 to life.
How old she is, and whether you're able to spend time with her.
Right. She will be turning 7 in July. To not
free now.
Yeah, this
and
is her
what
in like
these
2017.
last years were like when you weren't in prison, but you were under house arrest.
Thank you for having me, Amy. It's been, you see, I'm smiling. I'm so excited to be able to be a part of the movement that's going on. I really wanted to hit the ground running. I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted to spend, you know, time with my kids outside of my home. So that's been great. Basically the last 2 years, I really want to spend that time in building what I'm doing right now, which is my nonprofit. I pretty much completed a large portion of my book. So I really wanted to use that time to not be bitter, but be stronger and hit the ground running and just make an impact.
Well, your daughter was only 9 days old when this altercation occurred between you and your ex-husband in 2010. So can you tell us about her now, how old she is, and whether you're able to spend time with her?
Right. She will be turning 7 in July, so she's getting to be a big little girl. And we are divorced, and we have shared custody of her. So we, split that time. And we just have a love fest, for me to not be able to see her until she was 3, and for us to have the bond that we have now, it's a beautiful thing.
In 2013, we spoke with civil rights advocate and attorney Marissa Alexander, author of the best-selling book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration, the Age of Colorblindness. She talked about what role mandatory minimum sentencing played in your case, Marissa.
She received a 20-year sentence because of harsh mandatory minimum sentences that exist in Florida and in states nationwide.
Yeah, I feel like the 20 years was crazy.
Mandatory minimum sentences give no discretion to judges about the amount of time that the person should receive once a guilty verdict is rendered. Harsh mandatory minimum sentences for drug offenses were passed by Congress in the 1980s as part of the war on drugs and the Get Tough movement, sentences that have helped to fuel our nation's prison boom.
And John, to answer your question, she did not shoot him. She shot towards him, and it hit the wall and ricocheted into the ceiling. So she did not physically shoot him or the children that were there. So nobody was harmed, nothing at all. She stated that she didn't have any bodily injury from when, he abused her just that day. And he did not have any injuries, as well as the children did not have any injuries after that incident. So this was just strictly, a warning shot. But yeah, that's what they said. Her going back in and doing the warning shot was that assault. That's why she got charged with the 3 charges, for each person that was in the room, because they did state, what if that did hit one of the children? That would have been even worse at that point. But yeah, I feel like the mandatory minimums are really excessive in Florida. Like, that's a crazy rule. Just for possessing the gun, she would have got 10, even if she didn't shoot it. That would have just been 10 right there. But 20 just for shooting in the air, nobody was harmed. That's crazy also. Like, no chance of parole, nothing like that. You just straight sitting in there for 20 years. And she did say that sitting in jail, she kind of was just quiet in there, kept her ears open, back against the wall, like just watch. She didn't get into anything. She just, like, it was a whole different experience for her. And it was kind of depressing because obviously she was away from her kids, brand new mother. Like they said, the baby was 9 days old and she's already having to be in prison. She did get bailed out until sentencing, but still, the baby is brand new. So you don't know what else she's dealing with postpartum, and she just went through this abusive marriage, divorce, being away from kids. Like, it's a lot of things to think about, and things like that. So I feel like if she would have been in there for the 20 years, that would have caused more mental problems for her in the long run. You can call it what you want, excuses, but it's life. And I mean, you won't really know until you go through it. You got to put yourself in them people's shoes too. And that's why you got to make sure you got a good lawyer and pray you got a a fair judge. Because I can't say that all judges are fair. I can't say that, all juries are fair. But the jury, they're just regular people like us, making decisions. Some of them don't have any law background. Some of them, well, majority of them, they're just in there going off instructions they are given. This is what this means. This is what that means. And sometimes the instructions are messed up, just like it was in this case, which got her the plea deal. So you just really got to hope you got dealt a fair deck, because if you didn't, then decisions do have consequences. They do. But at the same time, those consequences can be excessive. It's not fair. That's why I said they do have to be fair. They do have to be reasonable. And as a community, we do have to make sure that we're providing rehabilitation for, if these people are getting out of jail, they need to know how to come out here and act once they get out. Not just, okay, you done sat down for 20 years. Now, what you gonna do when you come out? You expecting all these things of them when they get on parole. You need to have a job. You need to have this, do that, be here, be there. So how are you helping them get to these things that they have to maintain? How are you teaching them to maintain these things, especially if it's people out here just being wild on a regular basis, burglaries, robbing, whatever else people be doing, and you lend them out after 20 years and be like, okay, you're supposed to have all this stuff, but you do it. Let me give you a bus ticket so you can get home, but you do the rest. Make sure you don't get in trouble. Make sure don't do none of this again. Sideline, where y'all at? Shout out to Sideline Stories. Tap in with them. They be on, I believe it's Mondays, Thursdays. Also tap in with Before You Go to Sleep. They come on Wednesdays. But like, share, subscribe. We love to have you in Black Office. I'm a new show here, but I'm not a new face here. Like I said, when I come on, I'll be on Wednesdays with the Black Office team. We're on a little break right now, but we will be back after the New Year. So we'll be coming back on with y'all and get back on there. But shout out to Sideline Stories, Before You Go to Sleep, Rams Crash Out, Commander's Table. Shout out to all my peoples. Make sure you like and subscribe to them as well, because they be giving out good content. So if you're a Rams fan, Commanders fan, or if you want to talk about some viral topics before you go to sleep, hit them up. Wednesday nights, they like to get into it. They a little crazy, but they my peoples. But yeah, so what are some topics or cases, I should say, rather, that y'all would like me to kind of get into on some future episodes? Because, people get in trouble every day. So the sky's the limit. It could be any case you'd like to hear, whether it be OJ or a rapper or, like Epstein. I know that's something crazy going on right now. Women's rights, when did that happen? Can you elaborate on what women's rights? Because I'm not really understanding that completely. But yeah, so what are some cases y'all kind of want to talk about, why, verdicts were the way they were, or why evidence was placed in this way, things like that? Because, the March thingy. So that was, in this picture, that wasn't a march. This is when she got released, from her appeal. So what year, how did that happen? But yeah, again, this was not a march. This is when she got out. This is not about women's rights. This is about Marissa Alexander, her case.
Passed out for a second.
Her husband received probation after that incident. Months later, when her husband started pounding on the door, she says he was in a jealous rage over text messages on her cell phone.
He managed to get the door open, and that's when he strangled me. He put his hands around my neck.
Alexander got away from her husband and then made a fateful decision. She could have run out the front door and escaped. Instead, she ran into the garage, but says she did not have her car keys and the garage door was stuck. So instead, she grabbed her gun she kept in this garage.
And what did you think you were going to do with it?
I thought that I was going to have to protect myself.
Were you thinking you might have to shoot him?
Yeah, I did. If it came to that. He saw my weapon at my side, and when he saw it, he was even more upset, and that's when he threatened to kill me.
But how is he going to kill you if you're the one with the gun?
I agree. I thought it was crazy too.
But why didn't you run out the door at that point?
There was no other way to get out the door. He was right there threatening to kill me.
What if you would have run around him to go out the door? And your life would have been easier today if you did that.
Yeah, but the law states I don't have to.
The law she's talking about is the controversial Stand Your Ground law. Instead of running, she did what she thought was allowed by law. She believed she stood her ground and fired the gun into the wall. Nobody was hurt, but it was enough to scare her husband, Rico Gray, and he left the house with his 2 young children from a previous relationship. Alexander was safe from her husband, but not from the law. She was arrested, her Stand Your Ground defense rejected, and found guilty by a jury. Marissa Alexander's husband, Rico Gray, agreed to do an on-camera interview with us to counter his wife's allegations. But a few hours later, he made the decision not to do the interview, claiming that going on camera would put his life in danger. However, later, he sent us an email saying he would do an interview if he got paid, which CNN does not do. But he has already said quite a bit. During a deposition with a prosecutor from the Office of State Attorney Angela Corey and a defense attorney for his wife, Rico Gray acknowledged hitting his wife in the past and said this about the shooting incident, quote, "If my kids weren't there, I knew I probably would have tried to take the gun from her. I probably would have put my hand on her." Marissa Alexander's attorney then asked the husband what he meant about putting his hand on her. And Rico Gray responded, "Probably hit her. I got 5 baby mamas, and I put my hands in every last one of them except for one."
I believe when he threatened to kill me, that's what he was going to do. That's exactly what he intended to do. And had I not discharged my weapon at that point, I would not be here.
But later, at a court hearing to determine whether Marissa Alexander should get immunity based on the Stand Your Ground law, Rico Gray changed his story, saying he lied repeatedly in the deposition to protect his wife, claiming he did not threaten to kill her, and testifying, quote, "I begged and pleaded for my life when she had the gun." The jury deliberated for 12 minutes before convicting her. The Jacksonville NAACP wrote a letter to the trial judge, saying Marissa Alexander may not have received justice because of her gender, race, or economic status. Some African-American news websites are saying much the same thing, that if Marissa had been white, her Stand Your Ground defense would have been accepted, and she wouldn't be facing 20 years in prison. But Alexander will not say if she agrees with that possibility.
I'm going to be honest with you, I'm uncomfortable answering that.
For now, Marissa Alexander's main hope is that an appellate court agrees to hear her case.
Wow.
She had a baby girl with Rico Gray 3 years ago, but she only sees her child in photographs. Rico Gray has custody. He's considered the victim, his wife the criminal.
This is my life I'm fighting for. This is my life. And it's my life, and it's not entertainment. It is my life.
The 20-year sentence is a mandatory 20 years, meaning no chance of parole. Gary Tuckman, CNN, Jacksonville, Florida.
So yeah, again, do y'all think 20 years would have been the right sentence? Too much? I think it was too much. But again, it's still a little iffy on why she had to grab the gun. I mean, she could have went out the front door. Like, if you're trying to get away from danger, then I understand the prosecution's stance on you could have left a whole different way. Because if somebody's trying to get me, the car could stay where it's at, honestly. This is absolutely the worst trial ever. Racism from stem to stern. So what pieces of it do you think is racist? Because there's a lot of other people in America that thought race played a part in it. So let me know what part of it you thought was racist. Better citizens. Because again, it definitely could play a part in it because we all know if it was another race, things would have been different. They would have been let go. They would have been let off. And hey, Jody. I'm sorry, I'm just seeing your comments, but hey. But I am not behind Black Office. If you've seen my comments, I'm Joss the Giraffe, but I'm a part of Black Office, as you can see. But you definitely have seen my face before, Jody. Black Office is definitely like a Wizard Kelly. Is Tory Lanez going to get an appeal? So Tory Lanez, I actually did just watch something on him earlier where he asked Gavin Newsom, which is the governor of California, if he could pardon him because apparently there's new evidence that's been brought about. They are trying to still appeal on the fact that the doctors did not provide the fragments from Meg Thee Stallion's foot. But I guess it was argued in court that because they had a surgery, that was sufficient enough to prove that, bodily injury did happen to Megan Thee Stallion. So they're trying to say that they did not have to bring up those fragments. So we'll see if he can appeal. He's still standing on he didn't necessarily do it. And again, if he did not do it, he should have been up there advocating for himself because, you don't want to be wrongfully convicted for something that you didn't do. And he did say in his interview that I seen earlier that if he were to get up there, then he feels like it could have been a different outcome. So, which it definitely could have been. It could have been a different outcome for him. You always got to speak up, advocate for yourself. So, he was just kind of talked out of not getting up on the stand and not saying his piece. So, I guess now at this point, it's a hard fight to try to prove his case. I say you wanted to stick up for somebody, you didn't want to throw them under. Like, I get you wanting to stick to the code and not snitching, but now you away from your child, now you not doing your job as far as entertaining other people. And if you really didn't do it, then you just really didn't do it. Stuff happens, and if she did it, like somebody else said, there's consequences to the actions. But yeah, there's definitely consequences to the actions. And Jody, you haven't seen my face. Normally it's just my picture, but I've been here. I'm on Black Office when our show would come on Wednesdays, but this is my face. I don't know about race. Say, well, if you don't know about race, then I suggest you learn about some different races, and I encourage you to go get educated on different races because racism happens. That's for sure. And it's very prevalent. But yeah, give me a like, a subscribe, tell your friends about us. Again, if there's any cases you want for me to kind of deep dive in, talk about, we get on here and share, then let me know. And, you know, I'll definitely take a look into them because I really like case studies. And like I said, this is something that I'm getting into because I'm planning on being a lawyer. So I know in law school, I'm going to have to analyze cases and a bunch of other things. If there's any lawyers in the chat, drop some advice. Let me know, you know, things to be looking out for, things to study, because I'm going to be one of the best lawyers there is. So hopefully none of y'all need me for real, but, you know, in the near future, if you do, I'm your girl. So until next time, y'all, I hope you enjoyed the show. Leave me some feedback. And, oh, better citizens, you get 20 years and nobody was killed or wounded straight out of racism. Florida is the most racist state in the union because we all know if she was white that this would have never even gone to trial. Say, probably not. We never know. We definitely never know, but we definitely do know that there's a lot more white people that get off with things than there are black people that get off with things. As a black man, I do not trust the system and never will, which is understandable. And that's really like another reason why I do want to be a lawyer. Like, I know I can't fix everything, but I do want to be the change and the difference, even if it's 1% at a time, even if it's helping make somebody's life easier, if I can bring up something that could be, you know, possibly changed within the system. That's definitely one of my goals to do, because I've obviously had people in my family that have dealt with unfair situations. So, you know, it's a collective fight against a system that's trying to hold you down. But, you know, you just gotta stay out of trouble, keep your head above water, and if you do happen to get into something, you gotta stand on what you did or what you didn't do. And if you didn't do it, get you a good lawyer. And if that lawyer ain't good, fire them and get a new one. I think if she had cameras around the house, it would be a different situation in her case, because it will show what happened in the house. I was thinking that too. If she had cameras in that house, that would be like irrefutable proof right there, that you can show them like, hey, he was trying to kill me. Because to me, like, after you start hitting me that many times, like, we're gonna be putting cameras up somewhere. So she definitely should have had some cameras in the house. There's even been cases I've heard of where Ring cameras have caught just audio. I don't know if y'all have ever seen something like a bird feeder has cameras on it, you know, like animal feeders and stuff. But there's been cases where animal feeders were playing just the sound so that people can hear. They can't necessarily see, but you can still infer what's going on based on the audio that was provided by these bird feeders. I recently just heard a case like that from a lawyer who was talking about catching their husband cheating. You know, the husband turns off the cameras, but forgot there was a bird feeder with a camera on it outside. So the wife didn't heard everything. So there's definitely other ways to get stuff on tape. So I could definitely agree to that. She should have had some cameras in there. I know she hadn't been there in a couple of months. She was at her mom's house. But still, them cameras should have been in there, because then at that point, she probably wouldn't have to have this on her record. She wouldn't have to have gone to jail at all. And it would have just been solved right there. And they also, again, they trying to be on her for the fact that she did not call the police first. But she said, you know, since she thought she was covered by the stand your ground law, she told them the truth. Like, this is what it was. I don't got no reason to lie. This is what happened. Which, that could be true. She could have been telling the truth. But like I said, some things in this whole situation seems a little iffy. But if you're not in your right mind because you were a battered woman and you had this battered woman syndrome, that could be playing against your better judgment. So that's another thing to think about, because your mental is affected at that point and you're not thinking clearly. Thank you, Jody. I definitely appreciate it. You got any cases I should look at? Because I know they've been asking me questions about Diddy and stuff, but I'm definitely wanting to get into some other high profile cases. I've done some case studies in class about like OJ and stuff like that. So I know that's one that's on my list to talk about. But if y'all got any ones, I'm here to take all the advice, because we're going to break things down. We're going to bring laws to light that, y'all probably didn't know about, or, break it down so that you understand it, because there's, I believe, 27 states that have stand your ground, but they all could look a little bit different, because, you don't want to just go shooting at somebody. Now you facing 20 to 60 to life, like this lady. And laws are designed for us to easily understand them. I know sometimes wording can be confusing, but that's why there's ChatGPT too. Put that stuff in chat, break it down like a fifth grader if you can't understand. But you gotta start looking into laws and knowing what's protecting you, because you could be out here violating, then they don't care. They do not care, especially on our browns, black people. Our minorities, they don't care. We are live on Facebook too. So yeah, send us your Facebook name, Jody. We can go ahead and add you, and we do go live on Facebook. We go live on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. We got a bunch of different channels we go live on. So trying to hit y'all at all avenues so you're not missing us. But again, you still gotta like, subscribe, share, turn the notifications on. Okay, YNW Melly. So I don't know much about him, so that will be a study for me. I just know that he in there for murder. That's about it. But I don't know the specifics and the logistics, so I'm gonna write that one down. And thank you for the first case suggestion. But yeah, bird feeders, they do have cameras. I never knew that they had cameras, which is completely crazy. But I guess it's an investment. If you feel like your spouse is cheating, just put it close to the house, close to your room window. That was a tip from a family law attorney. So that actually happens to be out of Dallas. So she left that as a tip. But yeah, y'all, I just want to say thank y'all for tuning in with me. Catch me again. I might do some pre-records as well, so that I can, share some polls and stuff like that. So hopefully y'all engaged. Hopefully y'all like this episode. But until next time, and again, I appreciate y'all. Until next time.
That second, the unknown dethroned. Whispers in the courtroom, loud as thunder. Behind the scenes, peel back the blunder.